Welcome everyone. My name is Chuck Klinger. I work with the Distance Education Technical Assistance Project. I'm going to be joined today. My co-host is Chrissy Klinger, and I'll let Chrissy, if you want to unmute yourself and just introduce yourself, then certainly go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Chrissy Klinger with the Workforce Development Project out of Penn State's Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy. So looking forward to working through and sharing some things with you guys today.
And Chrissy and I both wanted to let you know we are not related, so it's just a kind of a coincidence that we both have the same last name and first initial, so we're both C. Klingers. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk briefly, probably for about 10 minutes or so, about gamification. And, kind of the focus for today's session is going to be on games that you can use educationally with your students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the term gamification and give kind of an outline of an example of how you might adopt that for your classes, especially with your distance learning. And then Chrissy's going to talk about Jeopardy, a template, and also some very specific resources that she's put together around using Jeopardy with your students, and some actually things that you can take home and start. Well, you're already home probably, but some things that you can take away from this session and begin using. And then we'll, as always, have time for questions, comments, things like that as we go. Certainly, if you want to, feel free to unmute yourself, use the chat room to ask questions, make comments, things like that throughout the session. I think a lot of the webinars we've been doing, people have had really good questions and ideas, so definitely keep those coming. So on with the show, as they say. So why use games? What are the reasons that you might want to think about using games with your students? Obviously, one of the first things that probably comes to mind is to make learning fun, and have fun's in quotation marks because, it's different students might think differently about whether it's fun or not, but it is something that can liven your students' experience up. Also, it's a good way to engage your learners, to engage your students in their learning. It's just kind of adds a little zest to the student experience. Some things that I'm going to get into when in talking about some examples of gamification, ways to review material and to promote mastery of material. There are some ways that you can really promote students working, especially when they're working at a distance, to master the content that they're working on. It's something that we struggle with the distance learning project is our students, they're assignment based. They work on an assignment, get done, move on to the next assignment. And sometimes they don't focus enough on really mastering the content that they're working on. And also it can be a way to motivate your students, especially your younger students, and even some of your older students that really like the reinforcement and the encouragement that you'll see. And that will also help with student persistence. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about is gamification. And it's probably a term that you've heard. And it's kind of one of those things that sometimes you hear and, you kind of think you know what it is. But, a definition that I've seen kind of in looking at a couple of different sites and colleges, universities, and businesses that use the term, it's basically the application of the typical elements of game playing to other areas of activity. So we'll be talking more specifically about education. And a lot of times the elements include, you kind of develop your rules of play. You think about points, there's usually some sort of points involved. And there may or may not be competition with others. There is a little bit of a competitive element. It might be, competing to try to get enough points, kind of competing against yourself to get so many points. Or sometimes it may be something that's more of a friendly, hopefully, competition among your students for prizes, rewards, pride, things like that. Okay, so if we wanted to gamify the distance learning experience, a very straightforward way that you can do that And this can be right now while everybody's working remotely and your students are working purely at a distance. It can be something that you can adapt once you resume classes and you want your students to continue doing the distance learning that they're doing to supplement what you're doing in class. But basically, the three main things that you would want to do is you would want to think about a point system. So basically they're going to do things and they're going to get points for the various things that they do. You're going to want to think about, it could be certificates. I talked about this with a couple teachers yesterday. So, and it could just be something that you print and give to the students. Obviously in today's environment, working with digital badges, and I'll talk about those more in just a minute, is a good way that you can kind of send those points to your students, reward them, and kind of give them something that they can, kind of feel that they received, and kind of something that they can hold on to. And then, ideally some sort of rewards. Could be something, that actually has like value. It could be something that has, more personal value. It could be something that has more, gift cards, things like that. So we'll talk about each of those things and what they might look like as you move forward with your classes. A point system. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to decide what students need to do to earn points. And if you've ever participated, for those of you that have looked at Khan Academy, you may have noticed that they give badges and points and things like that as you go through some of the different activities. If you play games on your smartphones or your tablets, you may have played games where as you unlock things, you get credit for things, you get points. And so basically one of the first things that you want to do is think about, what do I want to award points for? And it's usually going to be two main areas. One's going to be participation. It could be based on time. It could be based on completion of lessons. And then the other thing is progress. You've made it through fractions, or you've learned how to identify the author's viewpoint, or something like that. You've learned all of your vocabulary words for an ESL lesson. So those are usually the two main areas. There might be other things that you come up with, and sometimes teachers can be very creative, and if you've done anything like this and you have other ideas, I'd certainly encourage you to share those in the chat room. Things that I've done with my students is give them points or recognition for finding an error in a workbook that they're working on, or if I make a mistake and they point it out, then I might give them points for doing something like that. And, it kind of gets the students focused and engaged in what they're doing, and it, just kind of adds a little bit of fun to it. Like I said, if you can think of other things that you might want to do throughout the session, certainly throw them in the chat room and share them with others. Digital badging, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this, but it's a way that you can recognize achievements, and it is sort of like giving students a certificate, but you do it electronically. So it's something that they get in terms of an email. Can be very easy to administer, and I always put easy in quotation marks because what's easy for me may not be easy for you, and there are probably things that are easy for you that I'd really struggle with. But it is a pretty straightforward thing to do. And you can think about like Khan Academy. Like I said, the students get badges as they're working through lessons in Khan Academy. Sometimes you've completed 3 activities, so you get this badge or certificate. And then a lot of mobile games include that. And like I said, you could use certificates in class. So I'm just going to show you just a little bit what the digital badges look like. I use a website called Credly. It's a free website. It's Credly. And as you can see, these are some of the badges that I've given. So you can just simply create badges, and then it saves the badges that you create. So that's just like a demo one that I called for 10 hours. Like once the student gets 10 hours of distance learning in, I could send them this badge as just sort of a way to commemorate the work that they've done. Positivity award. Editor-in-chief, that's the one that I give out for students who find mistakes that I've made that are in a workbook, that are in a, an online activity, something like that that they do. So basically it's just a matter of creating these, and I can create as many badges as I want. And then I just send them by putting the student's name and email in, and I can put like a little memo in. I can actually do like an audio recording, and it will send the audio recording so they can hear the recording. So, and there are other sites like this, but Credly is one that's generally pretty easy to use, and it's free. So something that I'd certainly recommend. The other thing then is, what kind of rewards do you want to give? It could be prizes, maybe some school supplies, pens, pencils, paper, things like that. I know some programs give gift cards when students meet enrollment or when they come in for a post-test. So instead of just doing it that way, you could tie it into more of a point system and give the rewards as they achieve so many points. Could be food or snacks. Could be something for those of you that have been in the Numeracy Institute and have, the number of the day, where you pick a number each day and the students have to identify equations, expressions, things like that yield that number. It could just be who gets to pick the number of the day, whoever has the most points, or whoever has the most points can select the reading passage that you're going to do for the day. And again, there are all different kinds of things that you could do for rewards that it doesn't have to be anything that breaks the bank. It can just be something that can just be sort of like a pride thing for your students. And again, if anybody thinks of anything that you think might be helpful for your students in terms of rewards, certainly feel free to enter them in the chat, or we can talk about that a little bit after the session if you're interested. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention before we turn this over to Chrissy, is you can also use this to promote good habits. So you can promote mastery. Like I said, sometimes we really struggle with students. They just want to grind through assignments without really focusing on their learning, sometimes with distance learning. So instead of basing points on completion of assignments, base it on scores. They have to get 80% or higher on a quiz or lesson activity or something like that to receive the points for that. Or if they improve it on the retake to encourage students to really work to master something. So they get a 50% the first time, they get a 70% second time, they've improved. So they've done more work, they've gotten better. So give them points based on that. Promoting independence, like I mentioned, sometimes points for finding errors, to doing kind of their due diligence and really focusing on what they're working on. Points for seeking support. One of the things that I always enjoy with our distance learners is when they take it upon themselves to find other resources that help them. They're working independently. I'm not available maybe to help them when they're doing their work. So they go on YouTube and find a video, or they go on, they do a Google search and find a worksheet to help them or something like that. So you could certainly award points for things like that. And also to promote participation. So maybe instead of, awarding points for hours, maybe award points for continued use. If they work 5 consecutive days on their distance learning, or even in class, if they attend 5 consecutive days of class, you award them points. Or so many days a week, they work 5 days, if they work 5 days a week. One of the things that's really helpful for distance learners is that structure and that continued use. Not doing 10 hours and then not working for a week and then doing 5 hours and then taking a couple weeks, but that continued work. And then possibly points for following a schedule. Like, these are things that are good to reinforce with your distance learners. So just some ideas of things that you could set up in terms of, just kind of gamifying the distance learning experience. All right. I'll pause for a second for any questions, comments, anything like that. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Chrissy, who's going to be the star of the show with a lot of really good resources for using Jeopardy with your students. Any questions, comments? Okay, Chrissy, go ahead. I think you should be
All
able to
right, thanks,
share your screen
Chuck.
now. Yep.
Okay, is the first slide showing on the screen, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay, so as Chuck mentioned, there's a lot of great ways to use games in the classroom, and we're going to highlight Jeopardy today. So this is a game used to engage adult learners. And there's quite a few benefits of using the game Jeopardy with adult learners. There's been research done on this. So it does help demonstrate a mastery of learning beyond memorization. It provides an opportunity to use academic content in different scenarios and use questions at varying levels of Bloom's taxonomy, provide opportunities for teamwork, motivate students to take ownership of their learning, and it can be used as a pre-assessment, a self-assessment, or a post-assessment. And it's real flexible, can be adjusted to meet the needs of the learner. So hopefully be able to show you some different ways that you can see how all of these things happen through the game Jeopardy. If you're using Jeopardy, whether it be at a distance or in the classroom, or you're doing it in a blended fashion, there are some skills that are reinforced by playing the game itself. So the English language proficiency standards 1, 7, and 8, several college and career readiness standards, CCRS, and then the foundation skills framework. We have reads with understanding, speaks clearly and concisely, works in teams, makes decisions, and lifelong learning. So that's just in general. Depending on the topic that you pick for Jeopardy, there would be other CCRS skills that you, and even foundation skills that you could put into a lesson plan with that. So there's quite a few online templates, and I'm going to show a few screenshots and talk a little bit about them, but we will have this PowerPoint, and then I have a whole document that has all the links that you can click on, so if you want to explore some of these more. But Jeopardy Labs is online, and you can create your own or use ones that are already created. Cool English is a great one for ESL learners. Factile has some flexibility with it. And then there's templates online that you can go ahead and download and then put in whatever you want. So today we'll get a chance to play Jeopardy, and you'll get to see one of those templates in use. I know that as we work from a distance, some of you may not be able to get your students online to do some activities, so I did include some printable templates that you can use as well. So ISL Collective has some that are already made. There's some blank answer sheets that you can put your own things in, or you could have students create questions as an assignment, and then other blank fillable Jeopardy boards, or maybe parts of it are filled in and they have to fill in something else. So just quick show a few things. So that's what Cool English looks like. Here you can see if they turn their sound on and they have internet access, they can go through a Jeopardy game, and it will talk and speak different words for them and help them with building their English skills. Another thing that I made up, and again, we'll share all these resources with you, is using a Google form. So you can do it in the format of Jeopardy. So this one was on the category of safety in the workplace. And so it had some different questions, and they could pick and choose. So going along with what Chuck was saying with points and badges, you could make the Google form where some of the questions are required, or in this case, I only made that their name was required and everything else was optional, so they could answer the ones that they could and then gain points, and they could go back and tally those points or give them badges for submitting that. The Google Classroom, I have a sample Google Classroom set up, and I'll share that at the end. So this is just a screenshot. All of the different resources that you may want, I put into a sample classroom. So if you are using Google Classroom or want to consider having a Google Classroom set up where you would have different Jeopardy games and resources in there for the students to go in and access, the Jeopardy Labs website works with Google Classroom. So if you find a board that you like, you can have it automatically show up in Google Classrooms. The student clicks on it, and then the board pops up. They can play Jeopardy lab boards as 0 teams, so that will allow them to play as an individual, or they could, even do it over Zoom and have live play with teams that way. And the Jeopardy Labs website, you can search for all different types of boards that are already made, and you don't have to log in to do that or to use those boards. So if you want to make your own and share them, then you would have to log in and create an account. But if you do that, again, all of this has to be done with an internet connection. So some different ways that you might want to consider using Jeopardy. Team play, you could put the students in teams and compete live in person. Or if you're getting really good with Zoom rooms, you could split people up. They could sort of prepare as a team and then come back and have a team leader and play live as a whole class. You can put the board and questions up and work in teams to develop answers, and then every team shares their answer and they can argue why one team is correct or not correct. Another way to team play is have students work in a team to create 5 different questions, differing in degree or difficulty, and submit questions to another team to try to answer. So typically, and as you'll see as we demonstrate the Jeopardy game, each category has 5 questions. So the easier questions are like at a 100 level and the harder questions at 500 level. So helping students to create questions themselves and make them harder as they go along. As far as individual work, you can give students blank boards with topics and have them create the questions. You can do that on paper. You can do that through Google Docs. You can just do that in the classroom on note cards. You can give questions and have the students find answers. So I'll just jump over real quick and show you an example of that. We're going to play Workforce Jeopardy today. So I already have a document that has all of the questions, so I could give this to students they would just fill in the answers. And then finally, another way to do individual work is have students play an online version by themselves to review skills. So before we play Jeopardy, I'll just take a moment if anyone has any quick questions about what I shared so far. Okay, so, all right, so we're going to try out Jeopardy, and the way we're going to do that is using the chat box. So I will run the Jeopardy board on the PowerPoint template that I have, and then as we pick questions, you can type different answers that you think go with it into the Zoom. Now, we don't have to do it perfectly in the question format because that takes longer to type. So, we're just sort of demonstrating this today. You can do it however it works best with your students. If you want to try to have them like raise their hand feature on Zoom, or they can use the chat, or like I said, you could put them into teams and have a team leader. So lots of different ways, but today the way we're going to do it is you can just put your answers into the chat, and hopefully we have some people that'll volunteer and pick categories. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are the categories for Workforce Jeopardy today. We have safety signs, fact or opinion, name that tech, workforce words, and anything goes. So do we have someone that would like to use their microphone and pick a category and level of question? Okay, so Benjamin wants to pick workforce words for 100. So we're going to pull that up on the screen, and then anybody can answer in the chat. This word describes someone that is not on time for work. So we have quite a few people that have typed in an answer. The correct answer is, what is late or tardy? So at this point, you know, you could have students keeping score themselves. If you only have a few students on, you can keep track, but looks like most of you got that one. All right, so someone can pick another category. So Ginger wants to pick safety signs for 200. Go ahead and type in the chat what you think that sign tells people. Ryan and Emma are quick typers. They're putting in full question form, perfect spelling, way to go. That is correct. No cell phone usage allowed. All right, another category.
Name that tech for 200.
This device helps you add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers. So most of you got that. I did have it as a calculator, but this is one where maybe somebody would type in cell phone. So some people do use a calculator tool on their cell phone. So again, you know, some of these questions might provide an opportunity for conversation as well. And you'll notice the way that this PowerPoint template works, it automatically removes a question when we've done it. You can switch this over to Google Slides. If you do it on Google Slides, you'll have to keep track of which ones you did, because then that's the only thing that doesn't work when it transfers into Google Slides. All right, anybody willing to try some harder level questions, some 400 or 500 ones?
How about anything goes for 400?
All right. This is a series of occupations that a person holds over their lifetime. What is a career or work history? So it looks like a lot of you had, again, someone had employment history. So, you know, when you're playing with a class, just go ahead and have those conversations with the students. I noticed someone asked, can you use this on a Word document? So the way I'm running it right now, where you can click something and it jumps to something else, I don't have it set up on a Word document. I haven't seen a Word template for that. But I do have Word documents made up, and will share with you that you could give to the students to be keeping track of some of the answers. Okay, anyone want to pick a 500 level question?
Fact or opinion for 500.
Okay, so when we answer these, we're going to say, like, what is a fact or what is an opinion? So the 500 level question is, it is a good idea to do a background check on employees. So I see a lot of people answering fact, but I wonder, does anyone notice a word that's used in here that would make this an opinion, not a fact? So Emma, yeah, good. So good is one of those words that means something different for everyone. So we have that this one is, what is an opinion, since it is using that word good in there. So I see someone asked, is this in Google Classroom? Yes, I do have this set up in Google Classroom. You can copy and paste into your own Google Classroom. It's all ready to go. And then we also have it in Google Slides. So if you want to do it in Google Slides in the Google Classroom. And again, the students could just work through these themselves, or you could, you know, do it as a group. All right, we'll do one more. Yes, you can. So I'm using it on PowerPoint now through Zoom, so you can use it on PowerPoint as well. All right, one more category and level. Chuck, do you want to pick one?
Sorry, I was muted there. How about workforce words for 500?
All right. The process of paying employees electronically into the employee's bank account. And the correct, looks like everyone's getting that one right. What is direct deposit? All right, so we'll just quick show you another PowerPoint that we already have made that we will share with you. We won't play this one, but I'll just show you. So this is the same template, and I just changed out the categories. So this one we did all on the Foundation Skills Framework. So you could have the students have a copy of the Foundation Skills wheel. I also have a document of all the skills listed, so they could use that list. And this asks different questions about, so we'll just show you example one, demonstrates basic computer operating skills, and that foundation skill would be what uses technology. So again, this board's already made up and ready to go and has resources with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so how do you get all of these wonderful resources?
You got it.
There's a couple different ways. For those of you that are really tech savvy, if you have your cell phone available right now, if you're watching this on your laptop or desktop and you have a cell phone, you can aim the camera of your cell phone to the QR code that's on the screen right now. And the Google Classroom, where all of the materials are housed, should pop up for you. So we'll give you a moment if anyone wants to try that. I also can email you the link to the Google Classroom, and that is the code for the Google Classroom. Or you can email me at COK5111. Oh, I just realized my email address is wrong on there. It's actually at psu.com. Not sure how that happened. And I can send you links to get into the Google Drive that has all the files, the Google Classroom, or if you want, I have all of the files that I can zip into a folder and send it via email, and then you'll have to unzip them and load them. All right, so there is my correct email address, cok5111@psu.edu. And I'm going to jump over to another screen then and just show you all the different documents that you'll have access to. All right, so okay, so one of the documents I had shown was this Jeopardy fill in the blanks, as someone said about Word. I have this saved in Word, PDF, and Google Docs. So it's already created. You can have it and use it with the students. I also have a full lesson plan that includes the Workforce Jeopardy game. So it gives you a ready to go lesson plan. You could do it next week. You could do it tomorrow if you want. The other document that goes along with that lesson plan, here's an example of taking the statements that were in the Jeopardy game that we just played and asking students to use some of the vocabulary to write new sentences. So again, they could just fill that in. So this could be printed and sent. It can be shared through the Google Classroom. It could be, if you have like WhatsApp and you're sending documents that way, you can do it in that way. And then in the Google Drive, I have another document which has different ways to play Jeopardy with adult learners. So this gives you ideas of if you're having face-to-face instruction and want to use Jeopardy, and then links to some of the resources. So I noticed someone put in the comments about, you know, do we have something that's for low-level ESL learners? All of the things are adaptable. So once you have it, you can adjust things down or up. Or you can make your own Jeopardy boards on something that you're covering right now in class. Then there's a whole page on blended instruction and different ways you might want to use Jeopardy. And blended instruction just means that students are doing some things with you face-to-face and some things on their own. And then finally, what a lot of you are dealing with right now is the complete online distance instruction. So here's some different ways. So today we sort of tested out that entire class playing live via Zoom. Students could play on their own, so asynchronously, they're just going through it themselves. And then maybe when you're all meeting for class, you can talk about it. And again, like we see, some of the questions might be good discussion questions and different possible answers. And there are ways for them to play alone and then play without technology. All right, so just check the chat, see what other questions we have. If anybody does want to unmute if you have questions too. Chuck, do you have a way to get the chat after this that we'll be able to see who put their emails in that want the information?
Yes, I can get
Okay.
a printout of the chat that I can send to you.
Okay.
But what I would encourage people to do, if Chrissy, maybe if you can put your email address up there again,
Sure.
just to play it safe. If you email Chrissy, that's probably the best way to do that, just in case there's any typos with the chat or anything like that. So.
Yeah, and the Google Classroom and all the files have, again, things in multiple formats, a lot more than I showed, but I tried to show you the bulk of what we've created, and just so that you can see that you can pretty much just take all this and go with it. So if you later on want to create your own and do things, but this is definitely already prepared and ready to go. And especially if you're just looking for something different to do, you know, maybe the students are getting, you know, zoomed out, or they're tired, or, you know, just stressed out. This is just a fun game, and really gives them an opportunity to practice some skills in the process. All right, I see in the chat a lot of people like it and want us to send it to them, so we'll get that out today. And people had fun. I don't, and Chuck, help me if I missed it, I don't see any questions that we maybe didn't answer.
No, I haven't noticed any, except for the one that you mentioned about the low-level ESL learners.
So Ben, Flipgrid, are you asking if you could use this on Flipgrid? I did not look if there's a template for Flipgrid, but I have used Flipgrid myself, and I could see where maybe you would put up a Flipgrid with some of the Jeopardy type questions, and then maybe people could respond to them that way. So that is a way you could use Flipgrid, and Flipgrid works within Google Classroom too. So it's definitely a possibility to go with a Jeopardy theme with Flipgrid. Yeah, so unfortunately, no, we don't have any prizes for anyone today, but hopefully you kept track of your own points and create your own little badge to hang up at home. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, then Chuck and I will work together to make sure that we get all of the email addresses and requests that were in the chat. And then everyone also has my email address. Feel free to email me directly, especially if once you get the materials, you need help with using them. Please don't hesitate to reach out and I'll help you walk through that, how to use them.
Well, we'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anybody has any questions, comments, anything like that. Thank you all for participating, and special thanks to Chrissy. A great job, and it seems like a very popular. You're going to be very popular with sending these resources out to everybody. I don't know, Chrissy, anything else coming up that you might want to promote to folks here?
So Caitlin and I do monthly workforce webinars. So our next one is May 27th, but we have done a few already. So if you've missed them and would like a copy, we did one on Foundation Skills Framework. We've done one on entrepreneurship. And just earlier this week, we did one on labor markets. So if you missed our webinars, definitely shoot us an email and we can get you copies of the webinars and the resources.
All right, awesome, thanks. And from the distance side of things, just so people know what's coming, I have to finalize the dates, but we're going to do specific sessions on teaching math at a distance, teaching language arts at a distance, and teaching ESL at a distance. So I'm going to finalize the dates, and they should be in the email that goes out tomorrow from the professional development system. So just some things to look forward to. So thanks everyone. And like I said, if you have any other questions, somebody did, Chrissy, I don't know if you saw, Benjamin requested a copy of the entrepreneurship webinar.
Yep, I wrote that down, so I will get that to
cool.
Ben.
All right.
And Ben, do we have your, yep, okay, your email's up there. Awesome.
All right, well, thanks again to everybody for joining us.
One quick question, Chuck. Do you still
Sure.
have your office hours on Tuesdays at noon?
Yes.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Oh, sure.